All right, here we go. All right, here we go. West Coast Uncensored. This is D-Boy um, here with the podcast. And I want to thank everybody for being here, all the listeners, I see all my numbers are still going up the last few months. Even older ones, I see the numbers are growing. Shoot, every other day I look and I go, dang, even the older stuff that wasn't watched, listened to as much at one time, except certain people. So there's a group of people I really don't know on here on Anchor who are not really listening. I don't know them, and they're listening, and they're consistently adding to the numbers every day. I looked at the measurement chart, and I'm talking about all over Europe, actually all over the world, in different countries. Definitely in Eastern Europe, Northern Europe, Asia, and I've noticed that, and I was like, dang, this is pretty cool, pretty good. Anchor definitely covers a lot of area with what you can do, and I just want to hit back up. I have a little stuff I want to talk about because we really haven't flowed like this since October. I want to go into why. I definitely want to share my experience with everybody, and I know there's some people who've had this experience similar to what I did. I mean, back in October, I was just like, it was really strange. And a friend of mine had told me, I just felt really weird, strange. Something I just felt within me, myself, it wasn't right. And I was trying to definitely put my finger on it. And I was wondering, what's the deal here? What's going on? And then they had kind of notified me that what happened. They gave me some information that I should have been aware of, and I wasn't, was the fact that we're going through a retrograde. Anybody don't know what a retrograde, I suggest you look it up. It definitely is something true. It's something that you do experience. It's written. It's part of energy. It's definitely happened through October. And guess what? It ended on election day, which doesn't surprise me how that happens when you kind of know what's going on with the system. But anyways, but personally, in my system, what you really, really want to give attention to you and not so much outside of yourself, because you're outside of yourself, you're taken for a ride that you really have no control over. And then you kind of lose yourself because you're looking for something to manifest that really doesn't have anything to do with you personally and takes all the power out of your hands. And then, of course, it never manifests the way that you would want it to, because there's always a duality of a system, or it's a game being played on you through a system. It's like the whole world's a stage and we're all merely players kind of mindset. And then the ones of the audience, which to me is us, the world, whatever, you're the ones getting played. You're the biggest player in the game because it's all done for you in the mindset. So I kind of get away from that and get into the mindset of what you can do for yourself to grow into your higher self, into your best self, into your continuum self, into the things that you can do, because it's about balance. Like I said, the number one thing about this is balancing yourself. When you're imbalanced, you'll start noticing stuff. So what I was noticing in that time was that I was noticing certain things, and I was kind of being aware that certain things like situations, what was going on, a lot of paying attention to certain things that I usually didn't. But then I said, you can't really pay attention to that, because it definitely was coming in a whole different way, because it was trying to get your attention, and usually get your attention is to get your attention off you, because where you give your attention to is where your energy goes and then gets consumed. And if you're being drained and you're not the one consuming your own energy, then somebody or something else is. So then I kind of started looking at that, and then I started seeing that. So I found it as being almost the biggest place of my growth before the season, which we're entering into, which I'll talk somewhat about. I hadn't had the release to really do anything. I really didn't. I wanted to a couple times, and I just didn't feel it. I'm wanting to believe that you got to be led in the things you do, and you got to trust certain things about your aspects about yourself, your spirit, your intuition, and your mindset of what to do, when to do it. Kind of like the seasons, you don't usually you don't go into certain areas and think that it's summertime in Minneapolis, Minnesota in the wintertime, right? You just don't do that. You don't go, well, we're going to take our swimming trunks and hit the Great Lakes in the Thousand Lake area of Minneapolis, Minnesota in the depth of winter and think this is summertime or beginning of spring, because it isn't. You're out of tune and out of touch with the season, which it means out of your timing. and you got to find your timing, your season, and your time. So really, what I started seeing was, I started discovering and this is even myself, other things that I was connecting. I was starting to decode stuff, and I was starting to see certain things even about myself, and it goes deeper, but definitely with other things. But I was starting to decode it and see things in a different light, and I was starting even to see things that through the decoding that I was seeing that. Notice this word encoding. Why did I say that? Because I think encoding is connected to something that is okay for us when we realize that's an aspect of us, because it would be connected to your consciousness, your DNA. It would be read in that DNA, and those different things. It would be aspects about yourself, kind of like you're reading it, you know it, you're privy to it. You've kind of decoded, and you can see what things are being done, said, in. You can start seeing what is really happening and what is the benefit or the lack of benefit to certain things that are happening at that time, for you, to you, through you, by you. And because of lack of times, we don't even know our own codes and the codes that are connected to us, even within our DNA and stuff like that. We end up starting to do things that we probably have been doing over and over and over mindsets that don't benefit us of the growth that we need. And I call it almost like kind of just circling the wagon, kind of like there's an old story about 40 years of going in a circle in the Bible, and you hear about this going in a circle. They were going in a circle 40 years, and when you find out that, I mean, to do that, and what that represents is kind of looping in the same circle, looping in the same mindset, lack of growth, never kind of expanding anything in yourself, always living in certain belief systems, never really any growth in you in that. And then you can continue to loop the same things, and you get into situations through the looping that don't benefit you and will cast you into negative behavior, negative mindset. And maybe that's something, and I don't think maybe, I do believe now that it's something that when you start seeing the coding and you start to decode it, you start seeing that this is something that's probably hampered you for a long time. And it's time, and I started looking at, there's some things I needed to tweak. I needed to do some engineering, reverse engineering. I needed to go in there and change some things, take some of those tools that you have, and with us, in my channel, we've definitely talked about having the tools of adjustment that you start needing to do for yourself, through yourself, by yourself, to help yourself. And then it's like once you do, you have a little reason how to do it, and then you can share it with others that, hey, you can make adjustments here, like righty tighty, loosey lefty, right? This is how you would take something off, right? To tighten it, put it on, lefty to loosen it, to remove it. So you start seeing these are kind of like, and it's deeper. I'm talking about deeper stuff. I'm not just talking about some lug nuts. I'm talking about you're finding some kind of blueprints to yourself and how to do it. So that's kind of what I was doing in this encoding and decoding. And there for a bit, I mean, it kind of took me for a ride, and I was trying to figure things out, and then I had to really trust the thing that I always trust to get the information, and then things started making a little bit more sense. But it was a good 2 months. It really was. It affected the things that I needed to do, because I know that there's things that we need to do that's coming up. Personally, if you see it and do it, you're going to do it. You got to make those changes, because you just do, because it's time for that change. It is that season for them who are going to catch those things. So I started looking at it, and I started listening to some really good people I love to listen to. I definitely, and I heard this message the other day by somebody who I really like, and they mentioned the fact that you had to, it was like piercing the layers, and I just resonated with me, because I realized that it's kind of like going through something, and then you go through something else to go through it. But once you pierce through it, you go to another stance, or another realm, another layer. But also that's connected to you in the deepest part of yourself. It's just not always, it's not physical. Actually, it's not always, it's less physical than you think. There's physical aspects of it, but it goes into the deeper part of you, your consciousness, knowing more, resonance through your DNA, and through connected to the people you've been connected to, even your ancestors, resonance through that reigning, that resonance, that vibration, that sound, that connection, that vibrates in a higher frequency than maybe you've been in another areas and layers that you had to pierce. Now, saying that, I had to go back to the realize that you start looping things, and then you start, it's like missing the train. You go around, you have to wait till it goes around again, and then you miss it again because you're in the same mindset, and you're not lining yourself up to catch the 10:15 flight. You get there at 10:21 and you loop again. Or you get on that and you just keep looping, and you're never able to find a connection to the next one that's going to help you in your growth to pierce those layers that you need to pierce. So one of the big things I was looking at was through this, I was just like, man, I felt stalemated at times. And then somebody had mentioned to me that they were talking to me, and they told me, no, you're going through it. It's definitely, I referred to at the beginning of this, it was definitely something that had to do with we were going to a retrograde. And if you look it up, you find out it's an energy where there's a passing of two different powerful magnetic forces, and it can make you feel like you're going backwards. That's what the retrograde, well, that's why you get the word when people say, man, that's retro. What is that? That's usually back. Everything is retro. The back to the bell bottoms, and I'm using that for example, or back now to the skinny jeans and the tight jeans. When in the 90s, that was out of place. Now everybody's wearing skinny stuff like they did in the 60s and 70s. That's kind of retro. Listening to older music can be retro for a lot of younger people who didn't experience that as being their label of their music going up. Nostalgia is retro. So if you notice, the retrograde makes you feel like you're going backwards, that you're not really forward, and it almost makes you feel in your thinking, in your consciousness, that you're not really going forward. But the reality, it's probably the best, from what I'm understanding and studying, it's actually the best aspect of your growth, because it allows you to make tweaks and connections to yourself so that you can turn around and do that, because the big advancement and the big payoff is coming right after that, because it's coming soon after you go through the retrograde, the big connections there. And know this, for those who know and those who have no idea, and hopefully of those who have no idea, this can be some kind of awakening thing to you to go get a moment of, wow, okay, I knew there was something to what you're saying, and I can feel it deep, is that there is something happening that is greater than what's your purpose to control the situation, make you think it's happening. Getting your attention will take you away from your attention towards yourself, because you need to show up for yourself. You need to show up for yourself. If you don't show up for yourself, you will never be able to help anybody else, teach them to show up for themselves, because that's what it's about. And I'm learning more and more as dealing with people that, sometimes I've been somebody in my life because of what the different aspects I've done and had in different realities in jobs, coaching, back in the day, establishing with different spiritual and ministries, and doing this, that I was always that mouthpiece. We need some instruction. We need your wisdom. We need to know what to do. We need your leading. And as I was going, I was looking at this, and I was thinking, I used to be that one and always in that place, but there was a time coming that you had to be mentored within yourself, because it's about driving people to drive within themselves, to know themselves. Not that you look at somebody and say, oh, I got to follow them in their path and got to do what they're doing. It's not. On the contrary, there's some good things that we can lead and help people get to about themselves, about their life. But the reality, it's their path. There's some good avenues for similar and authentic, but there's something that your way may not be exactly where my way is. What I mean by that, where you're going, what your authenticity, your uniqueness is not mine. Your path may not be mine, but there is some similarities that we could teach you. Find you, man. It's about finding who you are to find out who you are, so you can find out who it is, and quit looping by following others in their loop, because you may be following them that are looping. I often think about some of the older writings that talks about narrow is the way, wide is the way that leads to destruction, but everybody's wanting to go wide. And I'm going to tell you the truth. If you believe in the government, you wide, because it's leading down a path that just, it ain't real deal. It's not. It's an illusion of that. You want to find your authentic stuff, because you can even get caught up, not even going to the extreme of what they do outside yourself, where you're thinking, well, there's this person, I really, really like them. I really believe in what they do. I really trust what they do. They've always been able to bring some stuff that I always thought was really, 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 really good. But here's the deal. But not learning